Hello, this is Robert Messina, and I'm here to share with you why I believe that the end of the world as we know it is very close. Jesus is coming back, and we are going to be gathered with him forever and ever. There are many things that happen first. I have that in my other video I just did. What shall be the sign of your coming? So that's a lengthy video explaining Matthew 24 essentially. You get the details for what is going to happen in that video, and in this video I'm going to give you my 12 reasons why I think it is very, very close. Okay, the first reason is the parable of the fig tree is said in conjunction with, well, let's just read it. He says, 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, and from one end of heaven to the other. And then, so he just got finished saying all of this, and he wants you to learn the parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is nigh. That's something you know. So likewise, when you see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Okay? Now here's the catch. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Okay? Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. What is the generation of the fig tree that began in 1948? Well, it would be the generation of those that were born in 1948, a little before it, a little after it, and everybody in between from the present time, 2018, till since 1948. Now let's go over to Psalm 90, verse 10. The days of our years are 80 years and 10, or 70 years. And if by reason of strength they be 80 years, or 80. Yet is their strength labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off and we fly away. So you see, we are given basically 70 years. And 70 years are up. From 1948 to 2018, it's up. But we still have, if by reason of strength, 80 years. So we got 10 more years. But don't forget, the first seal hasn't started yet. After the first seal is opened, there's a whole 7 years. So we don't have that much time if it's going to be according to what this says right here. Of course, it doesn't have to, but that's my first reason. It's close. Okay, for the second reason, I'm going to turn over to Daniel 9:27, and he's speaking about the end right here. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. So there's a covenant made with many for 1 week. And I think in this case, 7 years. 1 week of years. He, the bad guy, shall strengthen a covenant made with many for 1 week. I'm not going to go into detail, so I'll just read it. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. So even until the consummation. We look up the Hebrew word there for consummation. It's kala. The definition given for that is completion, the termination, the full end, complete destruction, consumption, annihilation. So you see, it's the end, the full end, the termination, even until the end. Is there yet to be a covenant confirmed? Yes. But is the covenant that is strengthened already in existence? I'm saying yes. I'm saying yes. And that covenant, I believe, I strongly, firmly believe that it is the covenant that was called the Oslo Accords. It was September 93 to September 2000, 7 years, a little bit more than 7 years on solar, but on Hebrew lunar, it is exactly 7 years. To the day, it is exactly 7 years that it was in existence, alive. It's still alive, but it's dead, kinda. September 28, 2000, or 28 Elul, 5760, Ariel Sharon went on the Temple Mount, and he caused a second intifada, and the ice broke. This covenant has lost its strength. It wasn't recognized anymore. But it is yet to be confirmed. It's not. It hasn't. It's still alive. It's as if it's in a coma. The way Sharon was in a coma for 8 years, this thing is in a coma now for 18 years. My point is it going to be in a coma for 100 years? Is it going to be in a coma for 50 years? I think this thing is going to be in a coma for just a couple more years. I don't know exactly how many, but it's a few. Not a lot. It's going to be confirmed soon. The third reason has to do with Ariel Sharon again, who in 2005, he helped implement the Gaza disengagement. And he was doing this according to a second Oslo Accord ratified in 95. It was the second Oslo Accord is basically stemming from the first Oslo Accord. This disengagement produced untold heartbreak and misery for thousands of evacuated Israeli settlers. They had to get out of their houses were destroyed, and all of their property was given over to the Palestinians. He did this in September. It just finalized it in September of 2005. And in January of 2006, he goes into a coma, and he dies 8 years later. And that's leading us to the fourth reason, which was a prophecy of Rabbi Yitzhak Kaduri. Now, he died at the age of 108, and he had a few things to say before he died, very interesting things. And one of the interesting things was Messiah would appear to Israel after Ariel Sharon's death. Now, he died in January of 2014. So he died a little more than 4 years ago. According to the prophecy, now this man said a few other things that we know are true. And he's saying Messiah is going to appear after Ariel Sharon's death. So he died 4 years ago. So how many years do we got to wait? I mean, how many years before we throw stones at this guy that's already dead and say he's a false prophet? He's not a false prophet. He's a true prophet. I count him as a true prophet right now. Concerning Messiah, right before he died, this man has said the truth as far as I'm concerned. So I'm saying that this is my fourth reason why the end is very close. Okay, the fifth reason has to do with the other thing Rabbi Kaduri said. He wrote a note in Hebrew. He wanted it to be opened a year after his death, and he did die. He died in January of 2006. So it was opened in 2007. And this very interesting note, very, very interesting note. Why? Because the note would reveal who Messiah was in a Kabbalistic way. But he wrote concerning the letter abbreviation of Messiah's name. And then he wrote a sentence. He will lift the people and prove that his word and law are valid. He will lift the people and prove that his word and law are valid. Okay, so that's his note, that's his sentence. And if you take the 6 Hebrew words, you take the first letter of each of those words, you spell out Yehoshua, which is the Hebrew word for Jesus. It's the Hebrew word for Jesus. Jesus is basically Greek, and we transliterate Jesus. You know, we somehow get Jesus out of the Greek word. But Yehoshua, it's very similar to Joshua. In fact, it's spelled exactly like Joshua. Jesus is often referred in Hebrew as Yeshua, which is a shortened form of Yehoshua. So he gave the full length spelling of Yehoshua with this sentence that does describe Yehoshua to the T. It describes him perfectly in a very short sentence. He will lift up the people. He will resurrect the people and prove his word and law are valid. His word and law are true. His word and law will stand. Okay, so that's the fifth reason. I think that this reason is strengthening the other two important things that Rabbi Kaduri said. So this is a reason. I'm counting this as a reason because of how marvelous the whole thing is. It's a marvel. This is a wonder. This is something to say, holy mackerel. Now this note is being used by believers in Yehoshua. It is bearing fruit. It is being used in making believers out of many Jews that have had the blindness over their eyes about who Jesus is. So it's a wonderful thing. And many Jews coming to know Messiah in this present day now, that is a sign in itself. The sixth thing is that the Jews all over the world to return to Israel. Why? Due to natural disasters which threaten to strike the world. Rabbi Kaduri said this right at the time Ariel Sharon was devastating Gush Katif, Gaza Strip area, evacuating the Israelis to, according to an Oslo Accord ratified in '95, which was a similar the one who will come to ratify the covenant made with the weak. It's very similar. So Rabbi Kaduri sees natural disasters which threaten to strike the world. And he said that September 20th, 2005, he got them all together and he told them that. Now, that leads us to the seventh, which is the red moons that occur on total lunar eclipses, which have occurred in pairs on Passover and Feast of Tabernacles for 2 consecutive years, 4 times in the last 500 years. So there's a phenomenon that went on 4 times in the last 500 years. A lunar eclipse, the Earth blocks out the sun, the red light gets around the Earth and shines upon the moon and the moon looks red. And that happens on Passover and Tabernacles the first year, and it happens Passover and Tabernacles the second year. And it does that 4 times. Each time is significant. To me, it basically is jiving with for Jews to return to Israel, which is what Rabbi Kaduri wants. Okay, it's jiving with that. Now, on that final red moon, we get a prophecy from Nathan, which is going to be signs 7 and 8. But by the way, he was clinically dead for 15 minutes at the exact same time that the final red moon was exhibiting to the world that it is red. At the time that has happened, he is up in heaven as a dead man. But he's not dead yet. But he goes through the whole process of what happens when you are dead. And he learns all of that, plus he learns some things that he never knew, and he found that out when he was up there, and God had put into his brain to bring back to earth things that he did not know before, and things that he is going to tell us. And one of the things he told us was when Armageddon, the Battle of Armageddon would begin, and he said it begins 9/11/2015. So it's already passed. It already began. The Battle of Armageddon already began, according to this prophecy. And I'm telling you the reasons, I believe this prophecy is true. I believe the second prophecy he has now. And by the way, on 9/11/2015, the date when the Iranian nuclear arms deal was passed in the U.S. Senate. Okay? The second thing he brings back to us to tell us was that Gog of the land of Magog, who was involved in this Battle of Armageddon, is President Obama. Okay, so President Obama is alive now. He's in his 50s. He's not going to be alive. He's going to be buried. He was told he's going to be buried in the land of Israel, which is according to Ezekiel's prophecy, that they bury Gog in the land of Israel, in Hamon-Gog, which is a big, big bowl to fit a 200-mile bowl of land where the blood goes up to the horse's bridle for 200 miles. A lot of people die at that time. A lot of people. We got a lot of people on the earth. This is the end of the world. This is what happens. That's one of the things. And he pointed out who Gog was, G-O-G, of the land of Magog. President Obama. That's another reason I think it is close. Armageddon already started, and we already know who it was, and he's not the president anymore. But he's going to get another job, the King of the South. Not the Antichrist, the King of the South. The best way to explain the King of the South, the King of the North, and the great battle of God Almighty at the end of the world, often referred to as Armageddon, with Gog and Magog. Let's go over to the sixth vial in Revelation 16. Now, again, the vials come after the seventh trumpet. Seventh trumpet, the kingdom of this world has become the kingdoms of our Christ, our anointed one, our Messiah. Jesus is here with us at this time. Okay, so let's go over to 16:12. And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, and the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. 13. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. So you see, there's three unclean spirits. There's the dragon himself with the 7 heads and 10 horns, and the 10 horns, I believe, come at in the very last end of days. And at this time, the dragon has as the head of him the beast. But the beast in itself, see, the dragon is the serpent, and he has this head, okay? So the dragon is ruling over the whole world. The beast, as the empire, as the feet of 10 toes of iron mixed with clay in the statue, that empire rules over the whole world as well. And the mouth of the false prophet rules over the whole world as well. All three of them rule over the whole world. The false prophet rules over in the sense of false doctrine, confusing who our good, loving God is, confusing what's right and what's wrong. That's the false prophet. Has to do with religion. Okay? Get that, religion. Because directly south of Jerusalem is Mecca. Directly north is Moscow. One of the 7 heads of the beast, United Nations, and within the Security Council. Keep going north, and you see the North Pole, and that is the emblem of the United Nations, with the olive branch around it. So we have those two, King of the North and King of the South, identified for us there. Anyone that neither the beast nor the false prophet, evil spirits, gather to their battle, the dragon or the serpent himself will gather, as he will do when the 1,000 years are up. When the 1,000-year millennium reign of Jesus and his people are completed, there's going to be a second resurrection, and everybody who ever lived is going to rise up, and the beast and false prophet are going to be already in the lake of fire, but the dragon, the serpent, he's now just the serpent, will gather the whole world to the Battle of Armageddon once again. There's 2 parts, so you see there's 2 parts to it. Islam is going to be a mighty force within these end time days. And in fact, Ezekiel talks about the countries that the false prophet, that this Islam rules, and those countries are the beginning of the battle of Gog and Magog. Now, to understand how Obama is of the land of Magog, we first have to understand where the land of Magog is. And let's go over to the first place where the term and the name Magog is used, and that's in Genesis 10, the 2nd verse. Now, the sons of Japheth. Japheth was one of the 3 sons of Noah. So this is the very beginning of repopulating the earth right now. The very, very beginning. The sons of Japheth were Gomer and Magog and Madai and Javan and Tubal and Meshach and Tiras. He has 7 sons. And those 7 sons go out, and they have sons, and those sons have sons. And the world is starting to populate through Japheth. It also populates through Ham, and it also populates through Shem. But this is where it's populating through Japheth now. Now we'll go over to Ezekiel 38, and he says, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal and prophesy against him. Three of Japheth's sons, Magog, Meshech, and Tubal, are mentioned right here. All right? So these are nations beginning with those three brothers, and it seems like Magog is higher esteemed than Meshech and Tubal. Gog himself is the chief prince of the land of Magog, the nation of Meshech and the nations of Tubal. They have a map, and they show the different families. And you have Magog. Magog is of the upper northeast quadrant of the world at that time. He's at the upper northeast quadrant. And you'll see Meshech and Tubal below the Black Sea, sort of in the center. Magog being of the northeast corner, it would be ideal if he were to travel eastward. So they would be most likely to migrate 5,500 kilometers, or about 3,400 miles, to a place called the Altai mountain area. And why am I saying that? I'm saying that because I'm seeing this statement made by DNA analysis of ethnic groups. It was stated that new DNA analysis of ethnic groups living in the Altai Mountains revealed a unique genetic mutation that also occurs in modern-day North Native Americans, the Indians. So, what is the land of Magog? Well, according to this DNA analysis, it's people that used to inhabit the Altai, used to live in the Altai mountain area. That's where they came from. And the closest and easiest for Magog people to migrate to. That's what I see. And that's why I think, and don't forget now, I do believe that Nathan told the truth when he said he saw Obama as Gog. Because I believe it, I looked it up, and I did find a very significant proof. Native Americans, Indians, that used to live here, that inhabited this area of the world for many, many, many more years than the Europeans took over, they are very, very likely to be descendants of Magog. And that's the proof that I see. So you see, Obama fits as Gog, also King of the South, also leading the massive army that are being led to the Battle of Armageddon by the spirit that comes, the evil spirit coming out of the mouth of the false prophet. Okay, now let's hop over to the ninth sign that leads us to believe the end of the world is upon us. We're going to have earthquakes in diverse places. Earthquakes in diverse places. I'm getting this from magneticreversal.org, and it's listed a couple of things that happens to the Earth's magnetic field. It began weakening in 1600. Magnetic field weakened 10% from 1800s to 2000. And the Earth's magnetic field was weakening 5% per century, but now is weakening 5% per decade. Now, as of 2014, the magnetic field is continually weakening rapidly. Okay? So, what's significant about the Earth's magnetic field weakening? It is our protection against things like earthquakes. Earthquakes are getting more numerous and more powerful, and that is one of the signs. There'll be earthquakes, Matthew 24:7, and earthquakes in diverse places. 10. And many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Traffic jams, planes and trains and automobiles, many going here, going there, to and fro. Many, many, many. Look around. There's many going to and fro, like they never did before. And this was said in Daniel 12:4. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall go to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. At time of the end, many shall go to and fro, knowledge shall be increased. Knowledge increased. We're in the information explosion. That's how knowledge has increased. It increased so much, it exploded. Okay, and the 11th reason, we go to Daniel 2:43, and talking about the kingdom portrayed as the feet of the statue with 10 toes, and it's iron mixed with clay. He describes the iron mixed with clay in 2:43. And whereas thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. They shall mingle. It doesn't say who they are. Shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. Something from somewhere, something that is not man, mingling with us, that is dominating us. Because this is describing the empire. It's dominating the clay and dominating the people that the empire rules over, which is the whole world at this time. I'm going to talk about a very controversial thing that I feel is true, and it has to do with the royal family are reptilian, is the way they're talking about it. They're reptilian. I mean, I see them as evil spirits ruling us. And I believe that the royal family is going to be the spearhead of ruling of the world. And I believe Prince Charles is going to be Antichrist, the man who is the mouthpiece of the United Nations, which is the beast described in Revelation 13. The last item is talking about, in Ezekiel 28, describing someone who is as the Antichrist, the man. Okay? It's very much described as Antichrist the man, or Antichrist in general. Antichrist the entity. The United Nations the entity, Antichrist the man. Okay? Behold, Ezekiel 28:3, behold, thou art wiser than Daniel, speaking of this one who is wicked. Wiser than Daniel, and there is no secret they can hide from thee. There is no secret they can hide from thee. We are in a time where we make a phone call, and that phone call is being heard and recorded, and it is sent to, under our profile, stored in our database, our own database. Each of us have an individual database right now, and it's stored in Brussels, has been called over the years as the beast. Anything about us, we know, he already knows. He knows a lot about us. What we like, what we don't like, you know, and this is going on and on. So this is the final reason, and the verse that points to it is, there is no secret that they can hide from you. So to sum it up, a fig tree represents Israel, and a generation is 70 years, and if by strength 80. Israel is 70 years old now. The first seal hasn't been opened. After it's open, we need 7 years to fulfill all the things that Jesus spoke about. This generation shall not pass till all be fulfilled that he was talking about. So we don't have much time at all right there. Now, on top of that, we have a covenant made with many for 1 week, September 93 to 2000. That was 18 years ago that covenant was broken. Nobody ever starts out making a covenant for seven years. What happened in this case is they made the covenant, and it was broken after 7 years, exactly 7 Hebrew years. It had within it all the earmarks you need to do the things that they want to do that prophecy talks about, including dividing the land, including taking away the daily and the sacrifice. Number 3, Ariel Sharon implements a similar covenant made promising giving away land to the Palestinians. In 95, that one was made, and Ariel Sharon made sure it worked. It was a horrible thing, and right after that, 3 months later after that, he suffered a stroke, went into a coma, and died 8 years later. At the time, Rabbi Kaduri, he was the shepherd of his beloved people, and he wanted them that were not in Israel to come because he saw hardships coming to the world. He wanted to protect them from the hardships that the rest of the world was going to be getting. The other thing Rabbi Kaduri said was Messiah would appear to Israel after Ariel Sharon's death, and he died 4 years ago. How long is going to be for his prophecy to come true? I believe his prophecy is going to come true, and it's going to come through very, very soon. We're talking about Messiah would appear. He's come. That's the end of the last 7 years. 5, Kaduri wrote a very controversial note. That was a sentence, the first Hebrew letter of each of the 6 words, spelled out Yehoshua. That note is being used today to help blinded Jews see the light, and it's bearing fruit. You would expect that at the end, too. Very end. 6, I already said this one. Kaduri called upon worldwide Jewry to return to Israel due to natural disasters which threatened to strike the world. And that was in line with the 4 times red moons occurred on the Passover and on the Tabernacles, 4 times in 500 years. It's not a very common event. The way I see those red moons, they are also trying to get Israel to return to their land. Nathan, a 15-year-old boy, happened to be clinically dead for 15 minutes on the final red moon of 2015. And one of the things he said when he came back, something he didn't know before he left, were different things that correlate with Bible prophecy. And he said that Armageddon began already on 9/11. He also identified Gog in the land of Magog, who was President Obama. That's number 8. President Obama is still a young man, but he's in his 50s. So how long is it going to be before he starts leading? I believe he's going to be leading the Muslim forces in battle. That is prophecy. Daniel 11 speaks of 2 kings, a king of the north and a king of the south. and Obama would be the king of the South, which is Mecca is directly south of Jerusalem. And it's shown that through DNA studies that American Indian have similar DNA mutations as those of the Altoy Mountains, and you can connect the dots where the people of Magog would have been very probable ones to migrate to the Altoy Mountains. Also, earthquakes in diverse places, and our magnetic shield is weakening very, very rapidly. It's not like it used to be. And the weaker that thing is, the more earthquakes we get. Earthquakes are dependent upon different things. So earthquakes. 10, Daniel 12 says that at the time, even to the time of the end, and then he says, many shall run to and fro. A lot of traffic in the streets, planes, trains, automobiles. Knowledge shall be increased. We are in the information explosion right now. The 11th one is Daniel 2:43. It talks about a statue, and the final kingdom is in the feet that is iron mixed with miry clay. And the iron represents those that mingle with the seed of men. Okay? So I personally believe when they talk about the royal family being of reptilian descent, I believe that. Or I think it's not reptiles. I think it's fallen, unclean angels. And finally, they talk about in Ezekiel 28:3, this fellow that exalts himself as God, and he's described as someone where there is no secret that they can hide from him. Right now, they know all about us. They know all about everybody. They never knew about every person on earth like they do now.